That's right, for YouTube. By the way, if you're on YouTube right now, the most important thing you can do if you're watching live or if you're watching this later on, which is actually way more important than if you're watching it live, leave a comment that says happy birthday or screw you or MAGA 2028 or just choose from one of those, just one of those three things are your best options, and then try and fight with someone else who said one of the other things. So that's what you should do. But for YouTube, here's what we're talking about. I've got a Gallup poll that I just thought it would be fun to start the conversation with. The DOJ announced that they found some fraud in Medicare and Medicaid funding, so we'll talk about that for a second. And the bigger thing is that the House and the Senate passed a housing bill called the Road to Housing Act. Unfortunately, as we know, the way that bills are named, it could be the opposite. No, it's got a couple good things in it and then a few bad things in it that I think make it not really worth voting for. But we'll talk about some of the stuff that's in that bill. And then the fact that Trump has come out and said that he's not going to sign it because first off, just so you guys know about this bill, massively bipartisan bill. Like only 5 people in the Senate voted against it and 32 people in the House voted against it, which means it's not good. Like anytime you get Republicans and Democrats to widely agree, Republicans and Democrats inside the government to widely agree on something, it means that's
the machine.
That is the machine. That's right. Getting together.
The machine.
And finding a way to screw some people over or to not actually do anything while making it appear that they are doing something. Trump says he's not going to sign it anyway until they pass the SAVE Act. So that's what we got. So he's threatening to not sign Elizabeth Warren's bill unless we pass the SAVE Act. So that would be awful. Be really bad. I just thought it would be worth starting with this Gallup poll. Just came out today.
Yeah, we're not far away from America's 250th birthday.
That's why
that's coming up.
Why they're talking about it, I guess.
What is that? The end of next week?
It's coming up next weekend.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Saturday.
1 in 5 Americans say the founders would be pleased. So that they said, thinking for a moment about the Declaration of Independence, overall, do you think the signers of the Declaration of Independence would be pleased or disappointed by the way the United States has turned out? And 19% of the respondents said that the signers of the Declaration would have completely gone back on everything that caused them to sign the Declaration of Independence, or that they would be pleased by what happened. So that has declined significantly, actually. In 1999, back in the good old days, it was at 44%. And those people were still wrong. In 2001, it was 54%.
It went up.
Because the founders would have been more pleased that we had just had a terrorist attack or something. I don't know, rallying around the flag and all that.
Well, they would be singing, "I'm proud to be an American."
They would be.
Waving
Absolutely.
their flag. Except they would be like, there's 50 stars on this one instead of 13.
It's weird. 2013, it was down at 27%, and now it's down at 19%. Charlie, do you think the signers of the Declaration of Independence would be pleased or disappointed with the way the United States has turned out?
I could probably, with 99.9% certainty, say that every single one of them would be disappointed.
Yeah.
I was even trying to think of like,
what if they looked at,
would Madison be like, maybe I can get behind a couple of these things? That by the way, that was the big government guy back then.
Hamilton was big government guy.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
This is the guy that argued for the central bank, and he was definitely more of a federalist, wanted more concentrated power.
He would still be like one of the most hated libertarians in existence right now compared to like where Republicans and Democrats are, and libertarians will hate him because they hate libertarians.
Yeah.
Saying he's still a much smaller government guy than what almost everyone in government is. Probably still. Thomas Massey might be a smaller government guy than Alexander Hamilton, I guess. But yeah, he's still extremely libertarian in comparison. Okay, what if they looked at America and they were like, holy crap, you guys have toilets in your house and it just leaves? Like you just get done and then it's gone over there and you can talk to people on the other side of the planet Earth on this thing
What is
that some kid in China made? That is insane.
What is a shower?
Yeah, you get to clean yourself off. You guys are obese? What? This is crazy.
You get nerve block for getting teeth
Like-
pulled?
They'd be like, oh my God,
Anesthesia?
this place is nuts. But you don't just die from like a simple infection, you know? It used to take millions of leeches to get rid of that stuff, you know? It's crazy, and they might be impressed. And then as someone in the group just said, wait, you guys let blacks and women vote? Burn it down. No,
Part of them might be like, oh wow, yeah, all of this technology and stuff. Maybe it's worth it that we're $40 trillion in debt.
or maybe they would say, well, obviously they did something right. You know, this is this advancement. But no, they would probably understand that there's an unseen problem because how much better would it be otherwise if the government weren't standing in people's way all the time? That's what I think they would say. The other moral of the story on this Gallup poll thing before we move on, does anyone care? Like I care. Charlie cares. Some people in the group care about that. But like even among the people who respond to this poll, most of them are going to say, but oh well. You know, they're dead. So who cares? Let's just keep doing more government stuff. That's what most of the people who responded to the poll are still going to say, regardless.
They're still going to vote in the same politicians who
Yeah.
are doing the same thing.
And I think, you know, this is a long time. It was 250 years ago they did this thing. I get it. A long time ago.
But hey, look, you know what? Maybe there's a little bit of white pill here.
Is there?
In that maybe more people get it than we think. That there's a cohort of people here that could agree with some of the libertarian liberty principles and realize that we're far away removed from that. And maybe this is an opportunity for someone to capture the attention of these folks.
Well, 77% of the people did respond that the founders would be disappointed in where we are. And so if you could somehow capture some of those people and say, okay, so what are we going to do about that? You know, repeal the 19th Amendment, clearly, first thing, right off the bat. No, other than that, what are we going to do about that? Let's try and make the government smaller. That's, you know, it's a white pill. There is a large percentage of people who at least acknowledge it. I think it's important. Like, I get it. The Constitution's really old, and it allowed the government to grow technically to where it is right now because a bunch of lawyers got a hold of a very simple document. It's still a really good thing to aim for. It's as good of a thing as any for like a nation to aspire towards, considering it's the way that the nation was created. And we can work on bringing those people closer to, I don't know, Mises and Rothbard and Lysander Spooner, you know, in the latter stages, stuff like that later on. But I think it's as good of a thing as any to try and reignite a movement towards are the people who founded this country and why they did it. So let's try and do that for the 250th anniversary. Speaking of, I forgot about this one. The Senate voted to end the Iran war. And I really just wanted to make fun of them for this. So the war is technically ended right now. We're not warring currently. We're ending the blockade, opening the strait, working on a deal. And I guess it's sort of, we can tie it back to the first thing we talked about too with the Gallup poll. It just reminded me that the Constitution tried to prevent Trump from doing this awful thing that might take down his presidency if it continues to go fairly poorly.
And by the way,
destroys the economy.
By the way, pretty much did though. I mean, we only warred for about 60 days.
Yeah.
Like it worked.
Well, it's still not constitutional.
But yes,
you can't do any war you want. But technically, I guess they tried to pay attention to the War Powers Act without getting in trouble for it. There's probably a reason they wrapped it up. Probably also for economic reasons that they had to wrap it up. But the Constitution and the fact that Congress is supposed to declare war could have prevented Trump from doing this terrible thing, because now here we are with so far pretty bad economic consequences, no real gains anywhere, back to where we started before the war, which is negotiating over the nuclear dust that exists, back to where we started before that. Except for, I believe, Iran is actually stronger because they have shown that they will go out there and close the Strait of Hormuz, and it will work. And they can use that as economic leverage over everyone. And you know what? If we just would have paid attention to the founders and what they said about war powers, and people would have held the president to that, the people that we have in Congress would have decided to hold the president to that, then they could have actually helped Trump. They could have actually forced us to do this deal that we're forced into doing, probably with more concessions right now than there would have been before. So keep that in mind also. Just another lesson on why it's, I think, paying attention to them, their founders, pretty good deal. So I think what we'll do is skip over to the housing bill. So this is a big bill. It's got I was looking through it earlier. I mean, it's got 100 different acts that have been proposed by different people in Congress, just all cobbled together into this big bill that's going to fix our housing problem. And of course, if you look online, that's what most of the people that are in support of this thing are saying it's going to do. I haven't found the reason that it's going to do that yet, although it does do a couple good things. So let's talk about this Road to Housing Act. So the House gave final approval Tuesday to a broad bipartisan bill aimed at lowering the cost of housing, with lawmakers in both parties eager to show progress on affordability issues ahead of the midterm elections. So 358 to 32 in the House, 85 to 5 in the Senate. And you had people like Rand Paul and Mike Lee and a couple others in the Senate vote against it. You had people like Thomas Massey and some of the other more Freedom Caucus people in the House vote against it. And so it's a good thing to ask why that happened. Because they say the legislation would reduce federal regulations. I like reducing federal regulations. I'm in support of doing that. It would streamline environmental reviews. That's a good thing. Let's get rid of them. Just get rid of those environmental reviews. Speed up the construction process, and curb the influence of corporate landlords by limiting their ability to purchase single-family homes. That's right. It does have that ban on large institutional investors from owning more than 350 homes. Although if they already own them, they can, if they like their homes, they can keep them. But going into the future, as long as they're not already in the process and doing the contracts on the houses right now.
What about the home rental companies, like Progress Residential and American Homes for Rent?
Nope. Large corporations.
But they're in the business of actually just renting homes to people.
I know. Yeah.
Can't do that.
No, that is why housing is expensive.
Yep.
That is why. So, and this,
even though all of those homes are rented, by the way, not great companies. I've been in fights with them before.
Yeah, I think Progress is a good company.
Yeah.
I mean, I back when I was flipping houses, I
did a lot of
did a lot of Progress houses, and they take good care of the houses, and we're generally in pretty decent neighborhoods, the houses that we were doing the flipping in. And a lot of the people, because there's a lot of Progress houses in my neighborhood now, not that I like this really, but a bunch of the people that are renting these homes are people that would never, it's not as if the rental company hadn't bought it that they would come in and buy the house. That's not what's going to happen.
Right.
These people don't have the credit to come in and buy the house. They don't have that
they
ability.
Don't have the credit to rent.
No, well,
but they're able to.
Someone that put their name on the paperwork had the credit to rent, I guess. And so it's not as if that person was like forced into renting by the company who bought this house. They would have just stayed in their apartment or something like that, you know. Now, it's been good for me technically because they buy up houses in neighborhoods like the one that I bought a house in 10 years ago, you know. It wasn't quite like it is now back when I bought in that neighborhood. But they have helped by coming in as a buyer in these neighborhoods, in my neighborhood specifically. In fact, anytime my wife and I talk about selling our house, we're like, well, you know, it's got that foundation issue over there in the corner. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Progress is going to buy this house and rent it out for $3,000 a month. Like that doesn't matter. You know, we're not talking about a family coming in to buy this house. You know, if it was a family coming in, we'd have to knock $50K off the price or something, you know? Yeah. So I'm sort of making the argument that in some neighborhoods, they do help keep the prices higher, which is good for me in some ways because it could end up being nice when I go to sell the house. Of course, maybe now it won't.
But see, we're still talking about symptoms of what's the actual problem. The problem is that the government makes building new homes too expensive.
They do. And
so we have a shortage, but why do we have a shortage? Why is the supply much less than the demand? It's because housing's become too expensive.
So it is important to remember, and while we're talking about this bill, that predominantly it is local governments who make it more difficult to build housing. These are mostly local zoning laws and restrictions and permits and stuff like that, that these codes that people are having to deal with. And that has been a big issue. And the other thing, which we'll talk about here in a bit, a big issue with housing right now is that interest rates are so high. So for instance, my wife and I have talked several times about wanting to get a new house. But right now, our mortgage rate is like 2.8%. And so right now I would go get a house that's going to cost $200,000 at least more than what I could sell my house for, and would be at like 6.5% mortgage rate right now. Or I don't know what the market is at the moment, but you're talking about a massive jump in price. And so what do? We stay in the house. Now that stops us from leaving that house up for bringing that into the supply for cheaper housing, because it's a cheaper house, and going into a new one, or deciding to go build a new house and getting an interest rate on that and taking out a loan to do that because the rates are so much higher right now. Why are the rates so high? Because we have inflation. What happened there? Government. That's what happened there. Why also are the rates so high? Debt. In the fact that we have to continue financing our debt. How do we do that? We have to entice people to buy our bonds to keep our debt afloat. How do we do that? We offer them a greater return on the bonds. Higher interest rates.
What's a return?
It's an interest rate. Okay. And so that's the big reason really that housing has gotten so expensive for people, at least on a monthly basis. Let's see. Got a few things here. It represents one of the most sweeping efforts in decades to increase the supply of housing and bring down prices as voter frustration runs high about the cost of living. Democratic Representative Maxine Waters of California, who helped negotiate the bill, said the median age of a first-time homebuyer is now 40 and rents have soared some 47% since the COVID-19 pandemic. She says our country must do better, and today we will. So Maxine Waters supports this bill. Okay. Also, Elizabeth Warren got a bunch of stuff that she likes in this bill.
So you know it's a good one.
So it's a real great bill. This is a big win for Trump. Let's see. The bill expands financing and protects renters. The legislation on its way to Trump would expand financing, encourage the development of innovative housing like modular homes. This is actually one of the good things in this, which we'll explain here in a minute. Require new renter protections and enhance programs that aim to end homelessness. It would also offer funding to local governments that build more housing, including community development block grant money, to to places exceeding the median rate of home building. It would provide new dollars for communities to turn abandoned infrastructure into housing, and it offers a framework for communities that want to reform outdated zoning regulations, which often limit larger housing developments. So one of the things, yes, we have the community development block grant money, stuff like that. One thing they're going to try to do is a carrot or stick approach with a carrot, because most of the regulations, the zoning restrictions, all that are local issues. They're going to try to pay the local, state, county, whoever it is that's doing it, to reduce their restrictions, which will help people in the area by paying the government of the state or the locality the taxpayers' money in order to reduce regulations on the taxpayers.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, but sometimes, okay, I'll give you a good example, a good local example here. Sometimes the reason that counties do this is because they're experiencing exponential growth of which they can't keep up with from an infrastructure perspective. So here in Williamson County in Tennessee, they now have limited new home builds to a minimum of 5-acre plots. So all of the communities that have gone up over the last couple of years and ones they're currently building have all been approved already. But if you submit plans to build another community like that or anything like that, then it's going to be denied, because Williamson County has already said, okay, we have this influx of this many people with this many homes. We don't have the money to keep up with the infrastructure costs of the roads and utilities and things like that. So we're going to have to,
pretty bad, yeah.
We're going to have to limit now the new home builds to, one home per 5-acre plot. What this is going to try to do is,
I like how they make it the roads and the infrastructure, and not the fact that obviously people in the community don't want the area to become overcrowded, and so they've gotten together on their local zoning boards and, county commissions and all that, whatever they call it in their state, and decided to limit the amount of people that can live per acre in these communities, because it's nicer. It is nicer to be, you're out there and you don't have anyone around you 5 acres, not that big, but you can still, your neighbor's still like right there, but it's got a little bit more space. The neighborhood's definitely way nicer. Everyone there is going to be rich because they're the only ones who can afford to do that. And so, sort of
but think about
filtering
it.
out some of the clientele.
You could put 20 homes on that 5 acres.
Oh, yeah.
Quarter acre lots.
You could put multifamily housing, what we call apartment buildings on this if you wanted to, Not that I
but what the government is doing is going to say, hey, Williamson County, if you'll lift this, one house per 5 acres and allow some more communities to be developed, we'll give you a little grant for that.
We'll give you money. We'll give you other people's money if you'll do that.
And Williamson County will be like, oh, we can do it now. No, it's fine.
That way the housing price in this neighborhood will come down from $2 million down to 1.7. Yeah. Potentially.
1.8.
Yeah. All brought to you by taxpayer money.
Somehow.
So that's good stuff.
This is, that doesn't make sense to me, but somehow the average home price in Williamson County is still like $460. I'm like, what?
Nah.
And what neighbor, oh, really? You're gonna count?
Look at that screenshot of Elizabeth Warren. Sorry, I got distracted there. She looks like a donkey in this. Good Lord. I just went to straighten up my hat.
Did you?
Yeah, I'm not wearing one. How about that? That old age, gets to you.
Fix your glasses.
Yeah.
All right, what does she have to say? Let's listen to Chief Warren.
Let's see what she has to say here. It looks like it's going to be annoying, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
I just voted yes to pass the biggest bipartisan housing bill in 30 years. Look, rent's too high, homes are too expensive, and for too long, the federal government totally asleep at the switch. And we changed that today. Our housing...
Has it been our problem that the federal government hasn't been doing enough things to make sure that people can afford housing?
Well,
are the Republicans in agreement that this has been the problem? That they are not enacting enough programs to try and reduce the cost of housing?
Well, the problem, Cena, is they've been asleep at the switch.
They have.
There's a
Switch there.
on Capitol Hill, and they've all been napping around it.
You switch it, and things get cheaper for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the way that you switch it is by spending more taxpayer money on stuff, and blocking institutional investors
Yep.
from buying homes. Let's see what else she has.
Bill will boost housing supply, bring down costs, and for the first time ever, stop private equity from buying up single-family homes. In other words, it's a big deal. Today is an historic day. We're going to get this thing signed into law, and Democrats will keep fighting to lower costs for families because that's our job.
It is her job. I wish more people would decide that their job was to stop doing stuff. Tim Burchett from here in Tennessee, he had a few things to say about this bill. Let's see what he has to say before we get into more of it. Let me see. He talks about another bill beforehand, so let me see.
Funding in advance to recover rather than being reimbursed later. $40 trillion in debt, and you provide little or no proof. We found a lot of fraud in these programs in the past. What's going to change for now? The other bill, this Housing Act, this is actually in the Senate, was Elizabeth Warren's bill, and they couldn't go through the regular channels, so they suspend the House rules to get it in the House today. Something in it is just crazy. It doesn't limit illegals from receiving housing welfare or limit foreign ownership. It actually includes Rashida Tlaib's $200 million affordable housing pilot program. It includes COVID-era eviction moratoriums. What in the world, folks? You talk about the deep state. That's what it is. Everybody, the only color they see is green, and it's coming out of your dadgum pocket. It's ridiculous. And here we are, and both of them passed, of course. I'm somebody like out there in the wilderness. There's about 15 or so, the usual suspects voted against these things, and we never get an answer. Never get an answer when we talk to leadership. So it's got to change. It has got to change. We will lose our republic, and the way we'll do it is to spend ourselves attacking real entrepreneurs. And anyway, it's pathetic. Thank y'all for sending me.
Coming out of your dadgum pocket.
Yeah. He's one of the better of the bad ones.
He's decent.
Yeah.
He's got some good stuff.
He does.
Some not so good stuff.
Yeah.
But
he's still bad on some stuff for sure. But
yeah, we forgot to say earmuffs. Sorry about that.
oh, because of the dadgum.
It's a dadgum.
Yeah.
Don't want your
That's
kids.
bad.
Don't want your kids saying that.
We've talked about this before, but I did read a new paper today about this. I actually went through it, took screenshots, didn't just have AI look at it for me or anything like that, And I think they did a pretty good job.
I looked at it.
What?
And I looked at it.
I looked at it. Yes. That is accurate. So the whole banning institutional investors thing or large corporations from owning homes, I understand why people don't like that sort of thing. I just explained to you how it's probably helping keep prices a little bit higher in my neighborhood. It's not the case across the country that this is happening really at all. And the big thing that bothers me about it, well, there's two things. They just passed a bill that allows the government, that is the government, saying that they are going to ban corporations from buying an asset for the purpose of having other people voluntarily rent that asset out to them. I don't like that. That's more government, and you think about where else can they go with that? Like, that's what you did, as you said, the government has the power to do that. Now, most people like this because they don't like the idea of these big companies coming in and buying up all the housing. But this has been shown time and time again to not be the issue that people are dealing with. if you still look at like let's see, U.S. single family homes by ownership type from this study in the Census Bureau and all kinds of other places. So it's in this PDF from the study. Let's see, rented by landlords with 100 to 1,000 homes. Now this bill just goes people with 350 and above, but 100 to 1,000, that is 0.15% of the single family housing units in the U.S. And then rented by institutional investors, 1,000 plus homes. That is actually larger, 0.55%. So people who have 100 or more homes makes up 0.7% of the home ownership in the U.S. It's a very small amount, basically, is what I'm trying to tell you. It's a very, very small amount. You can look at, they do a few charts in here showing that actually places that have some of the highest institutional ownership are still among some of the lowest increases in home prices, and some of them that have the lowest institutional ownership, like cities that have the lowest institutional ownership, are some of the highest increases in prices. And what you actually notice when you look at this little chart here, where it shows like Miami, Knoxville, Nashville, these having like large increases, and then you have like Atlanta and Jacksonville or like New York or San Francisco like being lower on the increases in prices. What you actually see is the big difference are what cities a bunch of people are moving to. And that's where the issue, a bunch of people are moving to a city all at the same time and increasing the prices. And actually there's not any correlation with what the percentage of institutional investor ownership is. And so that's pretty important. We've shown this graph before. I went back. This is now the third time we've showed this on the show. The housing shortage as a percentage of the units they have, and the investor-owned percentage. For instance, California has a housing shortage of almost 15%, and their institutional ownership is like 0.4%. Meaning if you got rid of all the institutional ownership, they would still have a housing shortage of like 14%. Still wouldn't fix the problem. The same thing goes for like New York, Washington, Nevada. We're talking states here. Washington, Nevada, Utah, Florida, Arizona. On a national level, it gives you that amount as well. There's just nothing showing that this is going to affect overall housing prices in the U.S. There will definitely be some neighborhoods here and there that could be affected by this. But it's not going to be this big fix that people think it's going to be. What's actually happened here is people have decided that they don't like it. And they've been told over and over again that the big evil BlackRock owns all the homes, even though BlackRock owns no homes. It's Blackstone that actually invests in the homes. Which is another funny part. People can't even get the villain's name right. They're just more concerned with pointing out who the villain is. People are so upset and don't like the idea that this is happening. They've been told over and over again that this is the problem. And that's now getting sold to them as a way that the government is going to solve this problem. And so why do I have an issue with that? Because it won't solve the problem, but it's going to buy the people in the government some more time to wait and see if this solves the problem, and it won't. And then we'll be a couple more years into this disaster, and everyone will be trying to figure out who the next villain is at that point, without actually all realizing what everyone really needs to do is go to their local city, county, or participate in their states or in their, whatever other little municipalities they have, the places you can go to your zoning board meeting. If you actually are concerned about like the housing price and stuff like that, go to that meeting. Do you know when it is? I don't even know what to call the freaking thing. Is that what it's called? I don't know what it's called. Can you even go to those? Are they public? I have no idea. I've never looked.
You're in Davidson County, so yours might be a little. little tougher than
do a freaking Metro Nashville thing. Yeah. That does suck. Like being, 20 minutes outside of Nashville and totally governed by what people worried about, like a 20 block radius in Nashville are concerned with doing.
Yeah.
It'd be like living in Illinois and all their laws just concern what's good for Chicago or what Chicago can handle.
Right.
And they care nothing about the rest. The same thing for me. Like I'm governed by Metro Nashville. So even though there's like cows right down the road, you know,
Yep.
it sucks. But anyway,
got a big lake in your backyard.
yeah, there's just my house. There's some woods and a giant lake after that, and I'm governed by Metro Nashville.
Yep.
So that's awesome.
Same as the Batman building.
Yeah. So let's see. In this study, they say the primary reason for the housing shortage, in turn, is that overly restrictive land use policies and not in my backyard or NIMBY activists prevent private developers from building the types of housing people want where they want it. And I like this section where they talk about how it was not always this way. And people are always like, well, why did housing used to be so much cheaper and all that? Well, number one, Federal Reserve. But number two, here's another one. Until the mid-20th century, it was routine for neighborhoods to have a variety of different types of housing. Duplexes, triplexes, set alongside single-family homes. Boarding houses offered affordable single-room occupancy living. 1 in 3 homes was manufactured off-site, giving consumers a 50% discount on the price of homes built on-site. But beginning in the 70s, local governments clamped down on the types of housing that could be built. Communities doubled down on exclusionary zoning laws, sometimes referred to as snob zoning. I've never heard it referred as that before, but sure. That effectively dictated who could live where and made it harder for builders to meet the growing demand for housing. Today, these laws are pervasive.
See, Nate, the system is racist. This is systemic racism right here. It says it.
Where'd you get the racism in this? What do we got?
Oh, we're trying to exclude people from certain neighborhoods and stuff, you know?
Mainly black people.
Yeah.
Actually,
come on.
Could have been for, I don't know. Builders can no longer meet demand.
I mean, this was under Johnson. So,
let's see. Essentially, I think that kind of describes it pretty well for you. And that's actually the thing that needs solved, as well as the really big issue, which is still the interest rates. Okay. So here's a quote from, I believe it's Rick Scott gave this quote. Rick Scott explained his objection to the legislation, arguing that the federal government cannot successfully impact housing regulation. He says, well, I don't see how it's going to drive down the cost of housing. What's going to drive down the U.S. cost of housing? 2 things. If you balance the budget, interest rates are going to come down. One of the biggest with housing, it says lousing, but I think it means housing. Scott said on Fox News. Number 2, most of regulation with respect to housing is not the federal level. It's at the local level, what cities and counties are doing. The federal government cannot drive the cost of housing down, except for with the interest rates and getting rid of any restrictions that they have on building specifically. Now, I got the chart here with the mortgage rates and all that too, just in case you're wondering why people aren't selling their houses and moving into a new one. Over 70% of mortgage borrowers have rates below 5%, and right now the rate's like 6.5% or something like that. It's kind of a bad trade-off. So I've got some notes on this thing and what it does. Now, first, I saw this as a good thing until I dug into it a little bit more. Says it reduces government barriers to building. Well, that's good. I don't like regulations on building. I don't think the federal government should be doing this. So it streamlines the permitting and the environmental reviews. That's good. Lowers costs for people. Markets can respond faster to this stuff. You don't have these people sitting around waiting for people to come give them permits and environmental reviews to make sure this frog is going to be okay or something like that. It's still gay. It's fine. The frog. But here's the problem with what this does. The federal government can't force your local governments to reduce the regulations. So then you got to look into it further. What regulations are they reducing? They're reducing regulations, environmental reviews, and permitting for federal assistance housing projects through housing and urban development. So while this is reducing regulations and making it easier to build, it is reducing regulations and making it easier to build federally assisted housing projects, your Section 8 housing and stuff like that. And that is what they've actually been able to federally reduce the regulations on building. Now, what a lot of people might say is, well, that's good. If you're going to do that, might as well make it more efficient, I guess. And unfortunately, that is what they're doing. They're making it more efficient for the government to build houses, while the rest of the market is going to sit there having the same issues that they're having. Not that I'm saying the federal government can do anything about that. They are local laws, But this is essentially putting private housing at even more of a disadvantage than it was beforehand because they're reducing the regulations on building federal housing. So great. We've made it easier to build federal housing. We've got a good thing, though. Trailers. I grew up in a trailer, That's
I did
good.
as a
So
kid.
mobile homes, I got that. So they are actually reducing regulations on those, and that is a good thing. I didn't realize.
Not if you live in tornado areas, but
No, actually, this could be good.
I just meant if you're in a tornado area, you should have a shelter.
You should
with your mobile home.
So I didn't realize that there's been a federal regulation requirement that these homes, these manufactured homes, had to be built on a steel chassis where you could move them like moving a trailer. Okay. And I guess that's fine. It helped out my mom and I when we wanted to move from the trailer park to down the street to another place. We were able to get a guy with a truck and hook up to our house and move it down the street. Very traumatic as a child if you don't understand that that's okay. But
they're taking our house.
And so, it's
you
still
guys
up
had
to
a
you.
nice
You can get that if
2-bedroom
you want.
there.
Oh yeah,
We had a nice,
great stuff.
We had a 2-bedroom.
Great stuff.
Too.
Yeah. And so one of the things they're doing is they're removing the federal requirement that all of these prefab houses have to be built on a steel chassis. And what that means is they're now opening up the market for all sorts of structures to be built to make it easier for these to be built off-site in a factory, which allows you to build them much faster, many more. You don't have to wait for rain. You don't have to wait for each permit process to take place. So it's much faster to build these things.
Probably actually make them into smaller pieces.
Smaller pieces.
Much easier to transport.
And now they're going to be set up. This is another important thing where they're just going to be attached directly to a foundation, which you would build on site first. Now, what does that mean? Many of the local zoning laws do not allow for trailers or modular homes, double wide, stuff like that to be, because they're not like an actual fixed foundation home. They're on a chassis. And so they've got these laws that say, well, you can't put that here because it's not an actual house. Trust me, I was told that my whole life growing up, all the cool kids in school. It's not an actual house.
It's just a bigger camper.
Yeah, that's it. Well, now, by taking away this regulation that they have to be on that, they can have more built that are ready to just secure to an actual foundation, the way a house would be secured to a foundation. And now you could have more prefab houses going in all sorts of different neighborhoods. And they don't just have to be one floor, which all of these are, or basically all of them. They could be multi-story. As you said, you can build them in many different sections and put them together on site and save a ton of time. This is actually the best thing that they did in this bill. This is good. And this is actually a way of helping with some of the local laws that have restrictions against these trailers by making them closer to an actual house and hopefully finding a way to get around some of the local zoning laws.
This allows competition, which, by the way, this could bring down the pricing of regular homes even.
Well, it could. Yeah, it's going to bring in a lot more competition.
Right. More people are like, well, you know what? I'll save a couple $100,000, build me a little modular starter home.
Yeah.
And they're not trying to go after the same supply of regular homes. Then the costs obviously will come down for regular homes.
That's true. And there will be less like stigma associated with your modular home or your double wide or whatever. If when you put it together, you're slapping it on a real foundation. So you don't get, you remember when like the wind would blow, like not even that hard, honestly. I mean, a stiff breeze. And
your trailer was more exposed.
you could feel it rocking pretty good.
Your trailer was a bit more exposed than mine was.
Was it?
Yeah, we were kind of surrounded by trees and stuff, which isn't good if they were.
No, that's not good.
If they were to fall over. But yeah, so
Yeah.
we didn't feel the wind as much. I just remember the skirt flapping around.
The underpinning, yeah.
Yeah, that'd flap around a lot. Didn't matter how many screws we put in
The
it.
storm comes through and it just
Marilyn Monroe, you know?
That's true. It's a thing that happens. And you worry about the wind getting up under
Up
there.
under- yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, and so this could sort of get rid of that stigma and have a lot more people who otherwise would not have considered it at all going to those, which increases the competition and could bring some prices down.
You talk about
just
stigma,
overall.
like here in Nolensville, there is some trailers, but they're in a trailer park. It's
Yeah.
like you have to have a separate welcome to Nolensville trailer park.
Well, you have that because those acres are zoned for that specifically,
and
and
they
the
can-
other ones aren't.
Exactly.
That's why you have
So you
that.
put all the trailers.
And then they put a
in one
gate, a
section.
fence around it, so you can't see the ugly trailer park.
Yeah. It's not to keep you out, by the way. It's to keep them in.
It's a safety thing for us.
That's District 12 here in Nolensville.
So where are we at with this bill now anyway? So that's a really good thing. I really like that they're doing this. That's good. It also, like, even though I don't like most of the other stuff, actually any of the other stuff that it's doing, it is acknowledging that we have a supply problem. And it's not just straight up saying we need to give money to a bunch of people so they can buy houses, you know, or it's not Trump's 50-year mortgage plan where, you know, what the problem is with housing. It's that people can't finance their house for 50 years. You know, that's the main issue. It's actually acknowledging that there's a supply problem. It's just going about it in a bunch of ways that I wouldn't recommend that actually could end up making the problem worse. Where they should just do the things that they can do to loosen up housing in the way that they can do it. Like this thing with modular homes. That is good. This thing with prefab houses. I'm very much in support of this. Guys, don't worry about this anyway, because we're not going to sign it, right? Trump says Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren-centric housing bill, which is of minor importance compared to lower interest rates and even FISA, pales in comparison to passing the Save America Act. That is what Americans, both Democrats, Republicans, and everyone else care about. Get the bad Republicans to approve it, or better yet, terminate the filibuster and approve it, and everything else Republicans have ever dreamed of. The Democrats will do it in hour one, 100%. Republicans will feel very stupid if they don't do it first. I'll be watching with tears in my eyes. And so not going to sign it right now. Now, he does mention that it is minor importance compared to lower interest rates. I would just like everyone to consider what could bring the interest rates down. And it looks like it's not going to be changing out the chair of the Federal Reserve, because people are still pricing in 2 interest rate hikes coming up. It would be having to finance less debt and having lower inflation for that interest to have to fight.
Now, what does that mean?
The government should spend less money.
That's exactly.
They should spend less money. Way
Because when you
less
talk
money.
all that complicated,
Yeah.
you know, lowering interest and all of, you know, that's just goes over everybody's head. The government needs to spend less money.
They need
And
to
this
do
is
less things.
something I think you brought up on Twitter the other day. We were talking about it on Monday. Is the government still spends $2 trillion more than it takes in?
It does.
We're about to hit, what is it, $1.9 trillion deficit?
It's 1.9 deficit, projected to be 3.6 by 2030.
Just think about that. And by the way, that's with the government fleecing you and companies and everybody else for $5 trillion.
Yeah.
So they're already taking in. They're already taking from you $5 trillion. We found a way to spend more, $2 trillion more, at least right now, and projected to spend $3.6 trillion more than that. Now, keep in mind, we were running a deficit spending $5 trillion a year in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So if we just go back to 2019 spending levels, we would have a balanced budget. In fact, we might even have a surplus.
That's, the government was just too small in 2019. That was our biggest issue. That even libertarians were like, yeah, this is fine.
Think about that. The
fine.
government literally grew by 50% in 7 years.
It's a big jump. Quite a jump.
50%.
Think about that, by the way, just in the taxes, which all spending is taxation anyway, but just in the taxes, taking in $5 trillion. $5 trillion from the productive people in society, people who are working and earning a living, and people have corporations that are providing goods and services to each other, and the government comes in and it takes $5 trillion out of that economy in order to just do things that the government is doing, plus even more than that afterwards. Imagine the kind of growth you would see in the economy if they just wouldn't steal so much of it. They wouldn't steal roughly 17% of the productive capacity of the United States every single year. What kind of exponential growth you would see. And that's crazy. Just when you said that number, 5 trillion out loud, I was like, my God, that's every year. Every year.
I think we should
We
should call it 5,000 billion so that people understand.
Yeah. Trump also said today's housing news conference and signing is hereby canceled until such time as we pass the desperately needed Save America Act, which I consider to be a national emergency. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So are we going to get this? Yeah, probably, because I believe it had a veto-proof majority in both sides of Congress, and if he doesn't sign it do anything with it within 10 days, I think it becomes de facto law anyway, if he doesn't take any actions whatsoever. That's what I'm reading anyway. Not sure how often that happens. But even if he vetoes it, pretty sure that a veto-proof majority, 85 senators voted for it. 300, only 32 members of the House voted against it. So if they want to pass it, they can pass it. And so it's important to pay attention to what's in it. It had one good thing and a bunch of other really bad things. That's all I have to say about that. You just want to spend the rest of the time singing me happy birthday or what?
Yeah, happy birthday to you.
Okay, thank you.
Queen
Appreciate that.
Wing Chong.
God.
That's my Japanese for you.
Thank you.
Pay homage to your heritage.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
Feliz cumpleaños.
that's good. That's good.
I think that's right. Costco, help me out here.
See if I can read some of the comments
He's
here
still here.
in the group.
Feliz cumpleaños. My accent probably sucks,
Mm-hmm.
but it's weird, man. We've been friends for so long now.
Is it too long?
Well, I'm trying to go back. Like, how old were we when I first came over? I want to say it was like 8th grade.
Can we phrase it differently? That sounds gay.
Well, we used to hang out as friends.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Okay.
You know, back in our day, people used to go over to each other's houses
house. Yeah.
or trailers.
Or yes.
You go over to each other's trailers.
I don't think I ever went to your trailer.
No, you
First
never,
time I came to
no.
your house, you lived in that brick house.
Yeah, that's when we got upgraded.
Yeah.
My dad finally started paying child support.
Yeah, man.
My dad finally started paying child support, and that went straight to the rent of this nice brick house.
Which supported the children.
It did.
You know? That is
I want to say I was in 6th grade, though. So I would have been 12. You would have been 13.
13 or 14, depending on what time of year it was.
So that's 25 years.
Because right now you're 37, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 39.
So 26 years of friendship.
Yeah. God.
I want a divorce.
Was it worth it?